Many thanks for joining us on this week's edition of the Weekly Report on Ebru Africa TV. I'm Kamena Gore, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you here with us as we have a comprehensive look at the ins and outs of what has transpired on the African continent this week. Now, trust we have got quite a bit lined up for you, but first, let's have a look at the headlines.
PDP power mongers! PDP power mongers!
Nigerian chambers of commerce closed until next week following a chaos inside parliament.
The action of the government in shutting down mosques has not gone down well with the Muslim community in this country.
Politicians call for the reopening of the raided mosques at the Kenyan coast. In a bid to quell unrest, Ivory Coast government gives its undertaking to settle ex-rebels' dues. Homa Bay County senator dies after suffering cardiac arrest. Now we start off in West Africa, where the Nigerian Senate leader David Mark has ordered both chambers of parliament to be closed until next week following chaos inside parliament just before a crucial debate on the security in the conflict-ridden northeast region. Now, police were trying to stop the House of Representatives Speaker Aminu Twambuwal from entering.
Nigerian police fired tear gas in the lobby of Parliament on Thursday to stop the Speaker of the lower house entering with a crowd of lawmakers and supporters, prompting the chairman to shut the National Assembly. Parliament was convening for the first time since Aminu Tambuwal switched sides before presidential elections in February to join the opposition to President Goodluck Jonathan. The confrontation started when Tambuwal appeared at the gates of Parliament accompanied by a crowd, including members of the opposition, All Progressive Congress, to preside over a debate on a bill to extend a state of emergency in 3 states hit by Boko Haram insurgency. After an argument, police locked the gates and fired tear gas throughout the main lobby of the Assembly. Senate President David Mark shut down the Assembly after the disruption.
I have decided that I will shut down the National Assembly until Tuesday next week. Both the House of Representatives and the Senate. It's unfortunate. We will invite the IG here on Tuesday also.
Nigeria's police said in a statement it had deployed security only after it received a tip that Parliament was about to be invaded. There were no arrests. Lawmaker Olusola Adeyeye condemned the actions of police.
The truth is, we are in a mess. As some of you heard me singing today, PDP power mongers! PDP power mongers! How many people will they kill? How many people will they kill? Can you imagine tear gassing the chamber of the people? This parliament represents the sovereignty of the people. When you tear gas it, you are tear gassing Nigerian.
Many people fled from the tear gas, with some visibly suffering side effects.
As you can see, people are still coughing, people are still having tears. All the gates were locked. Those of us who trekked, we couldn't go into the National Assembly premises in our cars. We trekked into the chambers. And then we were visited with the tear gas.
Nigeria's Africa top oil producer is battling a currency crisis compounded by falling global oil prices as well as an insurgency in 3 northeastern states.
Moving on, Michael Kafando, who was sworn in as the transitional president of Burkina Faso, is now faced with the task of leading the West African country to elections within a year following a brief military takeover. And according to a transitional timetable, the former foreign minister is set to name a prime minister, and together they will appoint a 25-member government.
After President Compaoré resigned and fled on October 31st in the face of mass protests against his attempt to change the constitution, the army stepped in and appointed Yakuba Isaac Zida as provisional head of state until November 17th, when Kafando was chosen by a committee and sworn in. Kafando has assured the citizens of stability in the country in the coming years.
In 12 months, one cannot do everything. But if one has the courage to face some of the challenges, what I see as a major challenge is, first of all, stability. Thank God our army has really been responsible and has guaranteed stability up to now. If we manage to set a base for a solution to the problems of the youth, and if we also manage to set a base for national reconciliation, I believe we have a traced path. We can only trace a path.
Despite a checkered past including accusations that he backed rebels during the civil wars in Liberia and Sierra Leone, Compaoré had reinvented himself as a regional power broker and Western ally against militants. The country, which is emerging as one of Africa's top gold producers, also played a mediation role in the crisis in neighboring Mali and Ivory Coast.
Now, Ivory Coast government has promised to pay back wages and overdue benefits to thousands of ex-rebels who are now serving in the army in a bid to quell unrest. Now, the government opened negotiations with the disgruntled soldiers on Wednesday.
The soldiers who erected barricades in the commercial capital Abidjan and the second city Bouaké, as well as in Kohogo, Odiene and Daloa, went back to barracks, hopeful that the government negotiations would yield positive negotiations. However, government officials and representatives for the protesters said the talks would stretch to today. The world's top cocoa-producing state is still emerging from a decade of political upheaval and a 2011 civil war that saw French and UN-backed rebels topple President Laurent Gbagbo after his refusal to accept an election defeat. The protesting troops were part of the New Forces rebellion that fought with UN and French backing to bring Gbagbo's rival current President Alassane Ouattara to power 3 years ago. A portion belonged to a group of 8,400 corporals who were due to begin receiving salaries from the government in 2009 under the terms of a peace deal. They only formally integrated into the National Armed Forces after Gbagbo's fall in 2011 and are now demanding over 2 years of back wages and housing benefits along with promotions. But following Wednesday's talks, which included government ministers and the heads of the Army and National Security Council, the soldiers said that the modalities for the payments were still being finalized. The negotiations did not involve another group of protesting soldiers who claimed they had been promised over $9,000 million. While the Tuesday's demonstrations remained largely calm and most of the soldiers were unarmed, they sharpened towards nightfall, with sporadic gunfire occurring in Bouaké, Daloa and Kohogo. In Bouaké, the rebels' former stronghold, they looted the city's central police station overnight and unsuccessfully attempted to break into the armory. Interior Minister Bakayoko promised that protesters would not be punished.
Still in North Africa, Egypt stepped up security in downtown Cairo in anticipation of protests commemorating 42 people who were killed in clashes with security forces 3 years ago. Now, police in riot gear and sniffer dogs circled downtown Cairo as pro-revolution movements announced their intention to protest on social media websites.
A small group of anti-government protesters marched in downtown chanting against the military. Police fired tear gas and arrested 34 people in central Cairo, where hundreds had gathered to commemorate dozens of protesters killed by security forces in 2011. The Mohamed Mahmoud Street protests began in November 2011 as a peaceful demonstration against Egypt's ruling generals at the time, but quickly erupted into running battles between police and protesters. Over 1,000 protesters were reportedly wounded in the clashes, with many being treated by voluntary doctors in field hospitals in and around Tahrir Square.
The U.S. campaign group Human Rights Watch has accused the police in the Democratic Republic of Congo of executing at least 51 people in an anti-gang operation and also being responsible for the disappearance of at least 33 more. Now, the report, based on witness testimony, comes as the second high-profile inquiry into Operation Likofi, or Punch in the Lingala language, that was launched last November to tackle criminal gangs in the capital of Kinshasa.
Human Rights Watch have accused police involved in Operation Likofi of executing unarmed young men at home, in front of family members and in markets, in an attempt to intimidate the local population. Human Rights Watch said the 51 number they have is not definite, and it is likely there were more people killed. One police officer in the operation told the organization that over 100 had been killed.
They went neighborhood to neighborhood, targeting suspected Kaluna. Often they didn't carry out investigations to find out who really were the Kaluna, and people who had nothing to do with the phenomena were targeted. In some cases, they dragged young men and boys out of their houses. Frequently, they beat them and humiliated them in front of their family members and neighbors. And in some cases, they were shot dead in front of their homes, in front of witnesses, in front of their family members.
According to sources, Operation Likofi was often conducted in a very brutal and illegal manner. Police officers who took part in the operation conducted raids across the city, and in total 33 people also disappeared.
We went outside and they said, "This is the one. We are taking him with us." "Who are you?" I asked. "We are Operation Likofi."
My child disappeared without a trace, and I don't know where he is or where he was buried. All I saw was the pool of blood where he was killed.
The government could not immediately be reached for comment, but Interior Minister Richard Moyej in October rejected the UN report that produced similar findings and accused its authors of trying to destabilize the government.
It was a good step for the government to say they wanted to start fighting crime here in Kinshasa, but they can't fight crime with crime. Instead of killing these people, forcibly disappearing them, they should arrest people based on arrest warrants and with real allegations against them regarding specific crimes, and bring these people to justice.
The United Nations Joint Human Rights Office in Congo accused the Congolese National Police in October of executing at least 9 people in the operation, which ended in February. The government expelled the head of the office, angering the UN Security Council, which has reported threats against the UNJHRO staff.
A section of politicians have demanded the reopening of mosques that were closed in a police operation that led to the recovery of weapons and the arrest of more than 100 people on suspicion that they were undergoing a militant training. Meanwhile, several youths were arrested on a Thursday night as they tried to break into Masjid Swafa in Kisauni for prayers. Now, the mosque is one of those that was closed down by the authorities.
After several soups in Mombasa that led to hundreds of youth being arrested and 4 mosques closed, a group of members of parliament drawn from the Muslim community have come out to condemn the operation. The leaders say that their freedom of worship is being curtailed, causing a disquiet among Muslim faithfuls across the country.
Very concerned indeed about the actions of the government in shutting down these mosques in Mombasa. We also want to state very clearly that the action of the government in shutting down mosques has not gone down well with the Muslim community in this country.
The members of parliament are accusing security officers of planting the weapons that were allegedly found in mosques. They are equally concerned of the rise of insecurity in the country.
This is a police that has repeatedly cheated us, but because of stereotyping, we tend to believe.
Yes, you can add also.
We need to look at other alternatives. Why can't they bring the media on board once they have seen these weapons there?
Now you will go to another mosque, arrest, another mosque, close, another mosque. Then you close all the mosques and you have not achieved anything.
Mombasa Senator Hassan Omar bringing in another twist to the issue, accusing the government of profiling mosques, something he terms a dangerous dimension that is happening under the full glare of the judiciary.
The reforms were intended to demilitarize them, to depoliticize them, so that we have a democratic policing unit. So it's accountable to nobody, as it were. It is arbitrary in its actions. These are the things we saw being done during the Mau Mau period of rounding up whole communities and putting them into concentration camps. They've come alive to us again.
Sasa utaleta grenade mbili na utashika vijana 200. How do you link the two? Utaunganisha vipi hii iwe katika ushahidi pia?
The members of parliament are asking the government to engage leaders first before they carry out such operations. Muslim leaders are of the opinion that rounding up youth with force and might from mosques is not the solution, considering that this has been done before but never yielded lasting solutions. Reporting for Ebru Africa, I'm Sam Kakunyi.
National leaders mourn Homa Bay County Senator Gerald Otieno Kajwang's passing on a Tuesday night. Now, Kajwang died at the Mater Hospital in Nairobi, where he had been rushed for emergency treatment after suffering cardiac arrest on a Tuesday night.
Wales. Mourns and tears is what characterized the Lee Funeral Home Wednesday morning as the late Otieno Kajwang's body arrived from the Mater Hospital, where he was rushed after complaining of chest pains. Led by CORD principals Raila Odinga, Moses Wetangula and Kalonzo Musyoka, mourners thronged the funeral home to receive and view the body of the former immigration minister.
He started feeling unwell and then asked the wife to take him to the hospital. He was rushed to Mater Hospital. On arrival, he actually alighted from the car and walked himself into the casualty, but collapsed on arrival at the casualty. The efforts by the doctors to resuscitate him were fruitless.
While addressing the press, CORD leader and a close ally to the deceased, Raila Odinga, recounted his last moments with Kajwang.
We had a major function with him last Friday at the Oyugis market in Homa Bay County. From there, he proceeded back to Nairobi. But before he arrived at Oyugis, he had a road accident on the way to Oyugis, and the car was extensively damaged. The driver was also injured, but he himself came out without any injuries.
According to court leader Raila Odinga, Kajwang was pronounced dead at 11:30 p.m. Tuesday night. He described his death as a huge blow to both the Orange Democratic Movement Party and the whole of the CORD coalition fraternity.
After 11 p.m., he was pronounced dead. This is a terrible blow to ODM and the CORD fraternity, because Otieno Kajwang was one of our strongest pillars in our movement.
The late Kajwang's death has come as a shock to many, considering the fact that there was no indication that he was unwell prior to his death. Senate Majority Leader Kindiki Kithure, who was also present at the funeral home, eulogized the deceased as a charismatic and passionate leader. He said the Senate will support the family.
We intend to move a motion of adjournment this afternoon at 2:30. I'll be moving that motion so that we can eulogize and mourn Otieno Kajwang, and later on we will be able to pay a visit, all of us in the Senate, to the family as soon as they give us a green light.
Various leaders present also joined in condoling the family.
I take this opportunity on behalf of the Senate to send our sincere and heartfelt condolences to the family of our brother.
At this moment of great grief, all of us stand in solidarity with his family, with the people of Homa Bay, where he served as senator.
Kwa kweli ni pengo kubwa kuanzia kwa famili yetu ya ODM na CORD, na vile vile kwa sababu yeye alikuwa ni kiongozi wa taifa.
President Uhuru Kenyatta sent a message of condolences to the family of the late senator, describing him as an eloquent debater, a patriot and a nationalist. Now, Kenyans will continue waiting for the autopsy results of the late Otieno Kajwang, which are still being conducted at the Lee Funeral Home by the government pathologist Johansen Odwor. For Ebro Africa News, I am Akisa Wandera at the Lee Funeral Home in Nairobi.
Now, there was drama at the Lee Funeral Home as a woman claiming to be the late Senator Otieno Kajwang's legal wife was ejected by bodyguards. Meanwhile, preliminary post-mortem results show that the Homa Bay senator died of a heart attack. Now, the burial date has been set for the 28th of November 2014.
Celebration of the life of Senator Otieno Kajwang at the Lee Funeral Home, as relatives and friends wait patiently for autopsy results. The results are finally out, corroborating what the hospital had earlier indicated, that he died of a heart attack. According to government pathologist Johansen Odwor, the late Kajwang's heart had poor blood supply and one of the blood vessels had narrowed, contributing to heart failure.
This area is usually a passage of the nerve. There are Purkinje muscles which help in the regulation of the heart. And what actually happened is when the infarct affected this area, that's when he had this condition and passed on. So the main cause of death is a myocardial infarction due to myocardial infarction due to what you call coronary artery disease.
Working with Dr. Odwor was a family pathologist, Dr. Emily Rugena, who said blood and other body fluid samples will be sent to the University of Pretoria in South Africa for more investigations. According to Dr. Rugena, 2 main analyses will be conducted before the final results are out.
We also plan to ship the blood and other body fluids to the University of Pretoria in South Africa. So currently we are just pursuing the details on how to have body fluids shipped out of the country. It's not that easy. You have to get authority from various offices to be able to ship that, and that's what is in the process.
Preliminary results have given the same information that was given by the Mater Hospital, that the late Otieno Kajwang had died of heart failure. However, these are not the final results, as some samples have been sent to South Africa for more investigations.
These reports are not conclusive. We have raised some questions, and we're expecting answers for those to those questions.
While addressing the press, family lawyer James Orengo said the late senator had broken 4 ribs on the left side, 2 fractures and bruises on the chest, and other external injuries. This, he said, will be investigated as they seek to establish the main cause of his death.
God bless you. Also, it was established that there was actually massive erosion of the stomach with a red colorization, and that, I think, is why the toxology is very important, because that can only be determined after those tests are done.
Earlier on at the Lee funeral home, drama unfolded as a woman claiming to be Senator Otieno Kajwang's wife insisted on being present as the doctors finalized the post-mortem procedure. The woman, by the name Faith Vivian Kajwang, demanded that the first family recognize her, as she even had 2 children with the late Kajwang.
I'm not a girlfriend to Kajwang. I'm a legal wife. Thank you.
Thank you. Your name, please. Your name?
My name is Faith.
Faith Otieno.
How long have you been the wife?
How long have you been married?
19 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
On Wednesday, the 27th of November, there will be a church service at the Maxwell Shrine, and thereafter a public viewing of the body at Uhuru Park grounds. The body will be airlifted to Kisumu ahead of the burial on the 28th of November in Homa Bay County.
We also agreed that there's going to be a service in Nairobi and public viewing in Nairobi, and the body then will be airlifted at the appointed time to Kisumu, although we have received a request also for Nakuru. But so far, the firm arrangements are to fly the body together with family members to Kisumu.
A national committee has been formed to take care of the funeral arrangements. Chaired by James Orengo, the committee will comprise of representatives from the family, parliament and the ODM party.
Thank you.
Kenya hosted a large trade and investment conference dubbed the Kenya International Investment Conference. Now, the 2-day event was aimed at making Kenya the business hub for Central and East Africa by creating a platform where local, regional and international investors can interact.
Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya.
Invest in Kenya, the hub of East and Central Africa. This is the theme of the Kenya International Investment Conference that kicked off Wednesday.
For your leadership over this tremendous conference, this inaugural conference.
The conference, which is the first of its kind in Kenya, has brought together over 1,000 local, regional and international investors under one roof to share ideas on how to create a conducive environment for investment.
Where
we can do the...
President Uhuru Kenyatta said Kenya is the business hub of the region, adding that his government is working on improving infrastructure and providing cheaper power to make the country even a better investment destination.
Ladies and gentlemen, investment is key to our economy. Without it, we cannot create the jobs that will sustain our young men and women or relieve the poverty that still disfigures the lives of our people. That is why my government is so assertively marketing the country and working to remove all obstacles that stand in the way of productive investment by investors.
According to the East African Affairs, Commerce and Tourism Cabinet Secretary Phyllis Kandie, the conference will be held every year to discuss progress made and to give feedback to the government on how to make the investment environment more conducive.
This conference is work in progress, and next year we plan to surpass what we have done today and to hold the biggest trade and investment conference in Africa.
Kandie urged countries that still have travel advisories against Kenya to withdraw them, saying the security situation in the country is stable for investment.
In order to make the region more attractive to investors and to promote faster growth for trade. This process has involved negotiations of higher levels of integration that open up markets and also removal of non-tariff barriers, amongst other issues.
The conference, which will continue for the next 2 days, also aims at creating a forum where the 47 counties can showcase the investment opportunities to foreign investors.
Thank you very much.
The government has today made a major step by launching the first ever international investment conference in this country that will not only encourage foreign investors to invest in this country, but also create a lot of job opportunities for Kenyans from the foreign investments. Reporting for Ebru Africa TV in Nairobi, I'm Eunice Mwai.
Moving back to North Africa, the Libyan Navy has rescued 108 African migrants who had spent 5 days at sea after an engine failure on their boat. Now, the migrants were on their way to Europe.
The Libyan Navy rescued the African migrants stranded at sea in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea on Thursday. Now, Navy officials said that they received a call for help from the migrants after they were adrift for 5 days following the breakdown of the boat's engine as they attempted to reach Europe. Libya is a major departure point for this journey, and human traffickers are exploiting the political chaos and lawlessness that has blighted the country since Muammar Gaddafi was toppled in an uprising in 2011. Libya, whose fragile government has been unable to impose its authority on large parts of the country, has become an increasingly common take-off point for illegal migrants trying to cross the Mediterranean to Europe. The United Nations said in August that nearly 2,000 people fleeing Africa and the Middle East have drowned in the Mediterranean this year, most of them in the past 3 months as they try to reach Europe from Libya.
Moving further south, lawyers for British businessman Shrien Dewani on Wednesday filed their petition for the discharge of the charges for conspiring to kill his wife, Annie.
Defense attorneys for murder-accused Shrien Dewani today filed application to have him acquitted under Section 174 of the Criminal Procedures Act. Under the Act, the defense can apply for acquittal, citing insufficient evidence once the state has closed their case. The state closed their case against Dewani on Monday after having called 16 witnesses since the beginning of the trial in October. CCTV footage of Annie Dewani's last hours was also shown to the court. British businessman Shrien Dewani stands accused of organizing his wife's murder, Annie Dewani, during their honeymoon in Cape Town, South Africa on the 13th of November 2010. 3 South African men have been convicted for the murder and are currently serving time. One of the men died in October after having suffered a terminal brain tumor and being denied medical parole. The state will submit its final heads of argument on Friday, and trial will resume on Monday at the Cape Town High Court. Madidi, Ivory News, Johannesburg.
That wraps up all we had lined up for you on the weekly report on Ebru Africa TV. I'm Kamene Goro. Up until next time, and from the entire Ebru Africa crew and staff, we are wishing you an absolutely lovely weekend and a blessed week ahead.